Congratulations! A life-changing deposit is waiting for you, but only if you act now. The notification appeared silently, its glow piercing the dim screen like a secret from the depths of intuition. The text was straightforward, almost too good to be true. Congratulations! A life-changing deposit is headed to your account, but only if you act now. For a second, you chuckled under your breath. The kind of laugh that masks uncertainty, wondering if it's a scam, a prank, or just another hollow lure in a noisy world. Yet, this one carried an unusual weight. The tone wasn't frantic or pushy, it exuded a serene confidence, as if it already foresaw your response. You reread it, letting the words sink in. A life-changing deposit. It didn't have to be cash. Perhaps it was vitality, creativity, or a renewed sense of direction. Maybe this wasn't from an external source, but from that dormant part of yourself yearning to awaken, to claim your existence, a true life-changing deposit. It reverberated like a mantra, prompting reflection on all the times you'd invested in skepticism, withdrawing from your reservoir of possibilities. What if this was the cosmos signaling, time to claim the dividends on your resilience? Glancing around your room, illuminated by the soft blue screen, the atmosphere felt altered. Electric, anticipatory. You could almost sense the hidden gears of fate whirring, poised to shift with your next move. The requirement was clear: act now. Those words struck a chord, evoking how chances often masquerade as deadlines, not out of malice, but because action affirms faith. You saw how every pause, every "not yet," had postponed miracles on the brink. Perhaps this was the cue to cease waiting. The alert wasn't arbitrary. It was a reflection, a mirror unveiling what unfolds when untapped potential demands attention. Rising to your feet, your pulse accelerated. The space seemed constricted, unable to hold the stirring within. You weren't sure of the steps, but you knew inaction was no longer an option. You couldn't revert to passive drifting, relying on others to shape your path. If this deposit is genuine, you murmured, it's awaiting your trust. Inhaling deeply, a shift occurred, not externally, but internally. A subtle release, as if an unseen barrier in your core had cracked, allowing illumination to filter through. This transcended riches or acclaim, it was about preparedness. Memories flooded in, near misses where you'd almost leaped, ideas shelved midway, aspirations deferred for someday. They now appeared as neglected riches, poised for reclamation. The insight hit sharply: the deposit had been accruing, needing only your endorsement of conviction to unlock. The screen's glow persisted, act now, throbbing like a vital rhythm. Pressing a hand to your chest, you felt an answering beat synchronize, and an inner voice affirmed, this is destiny initiating its flow. Closing your eyes, you embraced the void of potential. The deposit originated not from afar, but from accumulated lessons, wounds, and silent victories, earning interest in your soul's ethereal vault. Reopening them, doubt vanished. No evidence required, instinct grasped the reality. The account was your essence. The currency, consciousness. The exchange had commenced. Dawn brought a vivid world, hues amplified as if overnight. Awakening, you sensed an undercurrent of purpose, not dread, but eagerness. Recalling the message, it felt embedded, alive within your core. Sitting up, breath even yet profound, today marked not routine, but initiation. Morning rituals held newfound significance, water pouring resonated meaningfully, the mirror revealed untapped potential. You'd long awaited external transformation, ignoring that you were the awaited shift. The account wasn't financial, it was your awareness, spirit, the archive of decisions, thoughts, and energy. Each act of compassion, bravery, or discipline added to it, each surrender to fear or indifference depleted it. Now, in daylight, the surplus was evident. The transfer moment had arrived. A steady resolve built in your chest, calm, unwavering, like an enduring flame. There lingered an avoided task. A venture, aspiration, dialogue, perpetually, someday. The message insisted, only if you act now. Not an ultimatum, but an offer, gauging your willingness to bridge dream to deed. No approval needed, just impetus. Instinctively, you advanced. The floor's creak anchored you in motion's truth, a demarcation between spectator and architect of wonders. Throughout the day, echoes reinforced this. A cashier's grin, a stranger's courtesy, sunlight's warmth, all signs of harmony. You aligned with a grand, responsive intelligence, where action ignited currents. For the first time, you grasped the might of choices. Courageous instants were exchanges, belief, authorizations for universal reserves. Acting now wasn't haste or pursuit, sometimes, it was poised stillness born of lucidity. It meant holistic response to beckoning truths. In this, the deposit manifested, not as fortune, but as paradigm shift. Elusive notions became feasible, obscured chances emerged. Long-lost connections rekindled, as if reality recalibrated to your commitment. Action summons life's reply. When you stir, the tide follows. This realization warmed you, not thrill, but serenity. No fortune involved, readiness mattered. The universe favors not idlers, but preparers who dare the initial stride. The day unfolded in luminous focus. Even trifles, a brew, a pause, a sigh, felt like accruing dividends in your inner ledger. Evening, by the window, city lights twinkled like stars. You pondered others, screens in hand, awaiting miracles unaware of their proximity. The message reaches all, yet few respond. A subtle uplift in your core confirmed, the deposit has begun. Next morning, a reverent tranquility enveloped you, not from slumber, but from affirmation. The post dash, yes, to fears. No device check needed, the seed had rooted, radiating. Ordinary sights, extraordinary feel. Movements deliberate, details vivid, table's sunbeam, distant laughter, coffee's aroma. The world unveiled secrets to the alert, this is your abundance. You delved deeper. The deposit targeted inward, stockpiles of insight, endurance, affection, and valor beneath turmoil. You weren't awaiting, you were embodying it. Wandering, subtle wonders aligned effortlessly. A distant friend's call, a revived project, an unlocked door. Not pursued, but attracted by aligned intent. The universe awaited your ascent. Recalling self-doubts, later, excuses, they now seemed frivolous. Delays were denials of inherent rights. Affirmation was the catalyst. Pausing on a street, watching light pierce clouds, you saw life never deprived, you had. Acting now means not chasing, but sinking. A smile of acknowledgement, not hubris, but harmony. The deposit layered in, expansion, warmth, assurance for forthcoming challenges. Nightfall, in quietude, you marveled at cosmic simplicity. No enigmas, just prompts. The message mirrored potential, not conjured magic. Murmuring, the account is open, the world exhaled in unison. Beyond senses, benevolence acknowledged. Transfer finalized, not in accounts, but essence. Late, rain-scented air, softened world whispering to attentive ears. Inner settlement, wholeness. Not riches, renown, or conventional triumph, but fulfillment. The quest outward was inward return. Smiling at the irony, urgency's guise led to peace, awareness, thanks. The deposit arrived subtly, in heart, not hands. Not currency, but dominion. Over self. Reviewing days, connections clear, synchronicities, meetings, silences. Life's orchestration awaited awakening. Rewards not for toil, but alignment, ceasing resistance to destiny. Considering others awaiting signs, you wished to convey, the message is sent, dawns, breaths, kindnesses. The account is self, action, belief plus bold step. World's hum faded to breath's cadence. Act now, pulsed not as haste, but guidance. No rush, deliberate living. Deposit as momentum, interest, evolution. Balance, appreciation. Courage deposits, selfless love multiplies, patience safeguards, trust in unknown invites cosmic reciprocity. Night deepened, breeze blessed like absolution. Eyes shut, inner light radiated, dispelling fears, your legacy, unassailable. Eyes open, reflection in glass, city lights blending with your aura. No longer miracle seeker, the miracle incarnate. Smile of recognition. Transaction sealed. Energy transferred. You acted, world transformed. Deposit never money, awareness. Received wholly. Outside, headlights sliced darkness like a pact seal, irreversible change. Standing, deep breath, whispering, thanks for the message. I've acted. You read it again, slower this time. A life-changing deposit. The words lingered in your mind, and you began to realize it didn't necessarily mean money. What if it meant energy, inspiration, purpose? What if this was a message not from someone else, but from the part of you that had been waiting patiently, silently for you to wake up and take ownership of your own life, a life-changing deposit? It echoed like a mantra. It made you think of all the moments you'd invested in doubt, all the times you'd withdrawn courage from your account of potential. What if this was the universe's way of saying, it's time to collect interest on everything you've endured? You looked around the room, everything bathed in the faint blue glow of your screen. The air felt different now, charged, expectant. You could almost feel the unseen machinery of destiny humming quietly, ready to move the moment you did. The condition was simple. Act now. Act now. Those words hit something deep, reminding you how often opportunity appears disguised as urgency. Not because time is cruel, but because action is the language of belief. You realized that every time you hesitated, every time you told yourself not yet, you had delayed a miracle waiting to unfold. Maybe this was the moment to stop waiting. Maybe the message wasn't a random notification. Maybe it was a reflection, a mirror showing you what happens when potential finally demands recognition. You stood up, pulse quickening. The room felt smaller suddenly, as if it couldn't contain the weight of what was awakening inside you. You didn't know exactly what to do, but you knew what not to do. You couldn't go back to passively existing, waiting for someone or something else to define your future. If the deposit is real, you whispered to yourself, then maybe it's already waiting for me to believe in it. You took a slow, deep breath, and for the first time in a long time, you felt something shift. Not around you, but within you. A quiet unlocking, as if some invisible vault inside your chest had opened just enough for light to seep through. It wasn't about wealth or status. It was about readiness. You remembered moments when you'd almost acted, the ideas you'd abandoned halfway, the dreams you'd postponed until the right time. You saw them all lined up now, waiting for you like unclaimed treasures. The realization was sharp and electric. The deposit had always been building, waiting for your signature of belief to release it. The message still glowed faintly on the screen. The words "act now" seemed to pulse like a living heartbeat. You placed your hand over your chest and felt another pulse responding from within. The two rhythms, the one on the screen and the one beneath your ribs, synchronized for a moment, and something inside you whispered, "This is what it feels like when destiny begins to transfer itself." You closed your eyes, letting the silence fill with possibility. The deposit wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from every lesson, every scar, every quiet triumph that had been accumulating interest in the unseen bank of your soul. When you opened your eyes again, you no longer questioned what the message meant. You didn't need proof. You understood the truth instinctively. The account was you. The currency was awareness. And the transaction had already begun. When morning came, the world felt sharper, brighter, as if every color had been slightly intensified overnight. You woke with the feeling that something invisible was unfolding beneath the surface of ordinary life, a current moving with purpose. It wasn't anxiety. It was anticipation. You opened your eyes and remembered the message. A life-changing deposit is headed to your account. The words didn't feel distant anymore. They felt alive, as if they had been whispered straight into the marrow of your being. You sat up slowly, your breath steady but deep, sensing that today was no longer part of the routine. It was an initiation. Every action that morning carried a strange clarity. When you poured water into a glass, the sound seemed to echo with meaning. When you looked into the mirror, you didn't just see a reflection. You saw potential raw and unspent. You remembered how long you'd been waiting for something or someone to change your life and how often you had overlooked the truth. You were the change waiting to happen. The account the message mentioned wasn't a bank. It was your consciousness, your spirit, the invisible storehouse of your choices, thoughts, and energy. Every time you acted with kindness, courage, or discipline, you'd made a deposit. Every time you surrendered to fear, or apathy, you'd withdrawn a little. And now, standing in the morning light, you realized that the balance had grown. The time for the transfer had come. You felt a quiet conviction rise in your chest. Not loud or desperate, but sure, like a flame that no longer flickers. There was a task you'd been avoiding, a project, a dream, a conversation, something you'd always said you'd do someday. The message had been clear: only if you act now. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation, a test of your readiness to move from dreaming to doing. You didn't need permission. You needed momentum. You took a step forward almost instinctively. The floor creaked under your feet, grounding you in the reality of movement. It was a small gesture, but it symbolized everything: the difference between a person waiting for miracles and one creating them. As you moved through your day, everything seemed to echo that same truth. The cashier who smiled at you, the stranger who held the door, the sunlight on your arm through the window, they all felt like signs of alignment. You were in sync with something vast and intelligent, something that responded to action like a current responding to a touch. For the first time in a long time, you realized how powerful simple decisions could be. Each moment of courage was a transaction. Each act of belief, a signature authorizing the release of everything the universe had been saving for you. You began to understand that acting now didn't always mean rushing or chasing. Sometimes it meant stillness, the kind that comes from absolute clarity. Acting now meant responding with your whole self to the truth that calls to you. In that understanding, you could almost feel the deposit arriving, not as money or fortune, but as a shift in reality. Ideas that once seemed far-fetched began to feel possible. Opportunities that once seemed invisible began to glow faintly at the edges of your awareness. People you hadn't thought about in years began reaching out unexpectedly, as if the universe was rearranging itself to honor your choice. When you act, life responds. You thought, when you move, the current moves with you. That realization sent a surge of warmth through your chest. Not excitement, but peace. The universe doesn't reward those who wait. It rewards those who prepare and trust enough to take the first step. The rest of the day passed in that strange and beautiful clarity. Even the smallest things, a cup of coffee, a quiet pause, a breath, felt like part of the transfer. Every second you lived with awareness felt like interest compounding in your spiritual account. When night fell, you sat by the window and looked at the city lights glowing like constellations. You thought of all the people who might be waiting, scrolling through their screens, hoping for a miracle to arrive without realizing they are already on the edge of one. You wanted to tell them the message comes to everyone, but only a few act. And with that thought, a subtle sensation rose in your chest. Not words, not even sound, but a feeling so clear you couldn't mistake it. The deposit has begun. The following morning, you woke with a strange calm that felt almost sacred. It wasn't the kind of calm that comes from rest. It was the calm that follows a quiet decision, the moment after you say yes to something that once scared you. You didn't even need to check your phone. The message had already done its work. It had planted a seed that now pulsed with light inside you. Everything looked ordinary, but nothing felt the same. The rhythm of your heart carried a new precision, as if synchronized to an unseen force. You moved slower, more deliberately, noticing details you'd always ignored, the way sunlight rested on your table, the distant sound of children laughing, the exact scent of coffee drifting through the air. The world was offering itself to you moment by moment like a secret that only reveals itself when you're fully awake. You could almost hear it whisper, "This is your wealth." You began to understand the depth of that message. A life-changing deposit isn't about the world outside you. It's pointing inward. It's about the reserves of clarity, patience, love, and courage quietly growing beneath all your chaos. You were not waiting for the deposit. You were becoming it. As you walked through the day, small miracles began to unfold with casual precision. A friend you hadn't spoken to in years called you out of nowhere, saying they'd been thinking of you. A project you thought was long forgotten suddenly came back to life. A door that had been closed for months simply swung open without effort. You didn't chase these things. They came to you, drawn by the invisible magnetism of a mind finally aligned with belief. It was as if the universe had been waiting for one thing, your permission. You remembered how often you had doubted your own worth. How many times you told yourself, "I'll try later. I'm not ready yet. Maybe someday." And suddenly those excuses felt weightless, like old clothes you no longer needed to wear. You could see how every delay, every hesitation had been a quiet refusal to receive what was already yours. The act of saying yes had been the trigger all along. At that moment, you paused on a quiet street corner, watching the late afternoon light break through clouds into long golden beams. You realized that life had never withheld anything from you. You'd only withheld yourself from life. If I act now, you thought, I don't need to chase what's mine. I only need to align with it. The realization made you smile. It wasn't arrogance. It was recognition, the kind of peace that comes when you stop fighting the current and start moving with it. You could feel the deposit arriving in layers, not as coins or numbers, but as expansion, a broader view of the world, a warmer presence in your heart. A quiet certainty that whatever was next, you were finally equipped to meet it. Later that night, you sat in silence, thinking about the simple genius of the universe. It never speaks in riddles. It speaks in reminders. The message hadn't been a promise of magic. It was a mirror held up to your own potential. You whispered into the stillness, "The account is open." And in that moment, the world seemed to exhale with you. Somewhere beyond sound, beyond sight, beyond thought, something vast and benevolent seemed to smile. The transfer was complete. Not in your bank. In your being, you sat in that quiet space, breathing evenly, the air filled with the faint scent of